I work for PG&E. If you guys are local to California, you probably know what PG&E is. If you're not, you probably don't. It's the local gas and electric utility here for Central and Northern California. We're about 25,000 employees, another 10,000 contractors, and we serve about 15 million customers in California, one of the leading utilities in the United States. And we have a big focus on military and diversity strategy, and I'm in charge of the external outreach strategy there, and that includes women, minorities, veterans, people with disabilities, and our LGBT community. But I think it's important to know that, when we think about diversity, and I'm sure you guys at your company, when you think about diversity, it's more than a color. It's more than what the OFCCP tells you need to look at. It's about diversity of thought. It's about, recruiting from all different kind of universities, not just the ones that your executives went to. It's about getting the smart people, the right mix of people in each organization. And so it's not always just about these categories. It's about more than that. My name, Illole, people are always like, wow, like what? That's an interesting name. And they look at my son, they're like, are you Hawaiian? Or like, what are you? Or, were you in the military? No, diversity is more than that. I was not in the military. I have brothers, sisters, nephews. My dad was a World War II vet, as you guys heard. I don't have military experience myself. I'm not a minority myself. My husband's from East Africa. I speak Swahili fluently. That's kind of interesting to some people. They're like, wow, who is this person? I have another colleague in diversity who, he says, I'm a white male, and people go like, why are you in charge of diversity? But he's like, I speak 4 languages. I've lived on 4 different continents. I'm gay, I'm left-handed, like I'm pretty diverse. There's a lot going on there. I have a lot of different ideas. So as we talk about this, remember this cute picture. This is a group of SHIP students, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers from USC, and they're wearing shirts that say, on Wednesdays we wear pink. Any Mean Girl fans? I don't know, it's from that movie. And on the back it says diversity is more than a color. So cute little thought there. So why diversity? I mean, we talked about it a little before. It's really about getting the right mix of people on each team to be able to think about the problems that your business has and how to solve it in the right way. It's about creating an organization that's welcoming and inclusive and people are excited to work for. And the thing about diversity strategy is that it's a complicated thing. And a lot of people are thinking, especially after these new regulations came out with the OFCCP last year, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Gosh, it's so much to do, and we don't have a resource for that. Like, we don't have a diversity recruiter. Do any of you guys have a diversity recruiter? Or like anybody who's in charge of diversity recruiting? A few guys do. Does anybody not? Like, everybody just doesn't? Okay. So what I'd really like to tell you is that my philosophy with diversity recruiting and talent acquisition and outreach is that I get that you guys don't all have a resource. You don't have a person who's like, I'm going to be the person to talk to all the veteran candidates, and I'm going to understand the resume, and I'm going to translate it, and I'm going to do that. You guys don't all have that. You guys don't all have anybody who's working just on the strategy the way that I am necessarily, but in order to be successful for diversity is to layer it within every strategy that you have. So you probably have somebody who's in charge of university, maybe, if not diversity strategy within that. You probably have somebody who's in charge of executive, somebody who's focused on branding, somebody who's focused on your employee referral program. Every single thing that you do, every strategy has a diversity component within it. And really overall, that's my philosophy with diversity is it shouldn't be something extra. It's not the token program. It's not one of those things that it's just something that stands alone. It's not, it really shouldn't be. And in order to be successful, I really think that what we need to do is learn to layer that within every strategy that we have and not as a separate strategy. To start off, like we've been doing this a while, right? Affirmative action programs, like you guys have been working on them for years. And that's okay. We've been working on them. We've made our plans every year. We've taken them to the business leaders. We signed off on them. And then, we check in maybe every 6 months, maybe every year. We go back. We said, what did we say our plan was? Did we do that? Maybe, partially, who knows, hopefully. And then at the end of the year, we look at what we did and we say, okay, well, were we at plan and who did we hire and what does our mix look like? And more recently, this has been a bigger push to say, hey, what does our mix look like? And in recent years, some companies have decided to publish their metrics. What about you guys? How many of you guys publish your diversity metrics externally? Anybody do that? We do. Anybody just publish them internally? Anybody like think that there's probably like recruiters who have no idea maybe like what the mix is? For years and years we're supposed to be doing affirmative action plans, and I know that you guys are senior people, you know what an affirmative action plan is, right? And this is about our good faith efforts. So in those plans that you're making, some of the things you might be saying is, oh, we're going to post on these job boards. We're going to partner with these organizations for women, for minorities, whatever it is. We're going to go to the National Society of Black Engineers Conference. We're going to recruit there. We're going to post on their job board. We're going to do these things. And you may be doing those things. But how are you doing with it? A lot of those postings kind of goes back to the old school, like we always say, post and pray. We don't like to do that when we think about like we should be sourcing, we should be looking at things. Same thing with diversity. If your action plan is just saying, we're gonna post here, it's not enough. It's another post and pray situation, right? We're gonna post here on the National Society of Black Engineers, and all these black engineers are gonna apply, and it's gonna be magical, and everyone's gonna be happy, and we will hire all the right people. Hopefully, maybe, but probably need to have a little bit more. So a lot of what we do has to do with partnerships, because we can't do this alone, right? We can't just go out necessarily and go to womenengineers.com and find all the women engineers and everything happens great. A lot of times it's partnerships and working with people who are either developing, minorities or women, in this case, for certain skill sets, and making sure that you actually have a partnership where you can do a little bit more than just post on their board, right? And so what I really recommend doing is looking at the partnerships you have, thinking about the skill sets that you need, and this is kind of where workforce planning comes in. And again, that's a thing that a lot of organizations aren't super great at yet. Something that we're working on and say, hey, what do we need? And this is just an example. You guys may not need trades, engineering, any of those things. Maybe you need, RNs, CNAs, and medical coders. Who knows? But what do your affirmative action goals look like? Where do you need certain demographics? What is that skill set? And then what's the level? Because you find sometimes, for example, we go to the National Society of Black Engineers conference every year, and we hire a lot for university, and that's great. We've actually really increased our numbers from that and really increased our pipeline because we're hiring interns, we're hiring entry level. At that conference, a lot of great black engineers there. Not a lot of them that are coming through the job fair are anything but intern or entry level. So that's fine, we can hire them for intern and entry level, and hopefully that we retain them and we train them, and that all works well. But when I see the affirmative action plans, a lot of people are saying, well, we have an affirmative action plan for, director of engineering, so we're gonna write down NSBE for that. Well, we're not gonna find the director of engineering at the NSBE conference that we go to the job fair where all the people who are coming through are mostly gonna be for our university programs. So that's not quite accurate, right? So it's good to take a look at where we say we have needs, where we say we're looking at skill set and level, and make sure that the partnerships are actually matching up to what we need. Because otherwise, we might have a lot of partnerships, but we're not hitting the mark. Maybe you don't need any more minorities in trade, but you have partnerships for minorities in trade at the entry level, but you really need it at the higher level. So what are you going to do? What can you do to renew that partnership? You may be able to still use that partnership, but maybe you just need to use it differently. So maybe instead of going to the job fair only at NSBE, next year we decide to do a dinner, and we invite all the high-level engineers that are coming there for different reasons. And maybe are coming to support their organization, they're coming to recruit on their own, they're coming to speak at a workshop or something. We invite them, and we use that as a passive recruiting tool. That would be something that I would feel good about putting in an affirmative action plan, saying, yes, we did this. Yes, this was the right skill set. This was the right level for this goal. Instead of saying, yeah, we were there and we saw 300 college students and a few that were entry level, because it just doesn't match up. So we really need to think about your partnerships, and really it's something that you have to do kind of every year. It's not something you can say, yeah, we did that 5 years ago, so we're all good, we're all fine. No, your needs are gonna change, your levels are gonna change, and it's something you have to look at every year. So sometimes that wasn't totally working. When I came into PG&E, that's what I found out. I said, well, what are you putting on your plan for this and that? Oh, well, we put down, SWE for this one. Okay, well, we don't tend to find this kind of engineer at that conference, or we don't tend to take part in, efforts from that perspective that's really going to help move the needle there. This is all kind of the old news, right? So just to get you thinking about it, so good is you make your AAPs, you make your action plans, that's fine. That's kind of bare minimum. You have to do that every year anyway. Something that's better is forge the partnerships that's going to really fill in the right gaps and figure out how you can work with your old partnerships to say, hey, you know what? I just realized we really should be looking at a different side of the talent here. We notice, we don't meet these people at your conference. What do you have online? Do you have any, webinars that you do that maybe focuses on this skill set that we could sponsor or meet some people? How can you change those partnerships that you already have, or what new partnerships do you need that are going to fill in the right gaps? We, have a big push for Black engineers, yes, but we need African American besides engineers at PG&E, right? So every single thing where they say like, oh, minority, okay, well, we go to NSBE. Okay, this is like a finance job. Like, we're not gonna find that at NSBE. So what else can we do? Can we, partner with NABA instead if we're looking for a finance partnership that we didn't have before? Can we partner with the local chapter of Black MBAs? And the other part of this is you may not have the $25,000 to go to a huge national conference. And that's fine. So other options are working with local organizations. So a lot of times, even those national level organizations, they'll have local chapters, and you can work with them for as little as free sometimes. They may just be happy to say, hey, send me your jobs. We'll post them on our Facebook page. Cool. We want to help our members get the right jobs. So there's a really big sliding scale of how you can use those organizations besides just saying, hey, you know what, I don't really have the $30,000 to sponsor that large organization on an annual level. So there's a lot of different things. I mean, working at your university level, a lot of times we just go to campus and we say, hey, we'd love to meet with your diverse engineering organizations, all three of them. If you guys can put out the word through campus, we'll buy pizza for everyone, and we'll talk about interviewing skills, and they'll all come out, and that starts, a pipeline. And the bottom line is that you need to measure and look at what you need to do to really move the needle, because you can have all the partnerships in the world and you can write them down on your affirmative action plan, but if it's not moving the needle, if it's all talk and it's, we made these plans and it's all on paper and it's not changing things, then we really need to kind of reevaluate. It's more about showing the action, and if that's not working, then to think about that a little bit more deeply and how you can make a better change and what you need to influence for that. So the new part, so it's we've been doing that for a long time. We're still kind of struggling with it. It's something that's familiar with us, but then there was some stuff that was new and it kind of threw everybody for a loop. So in 2015, if any of you guys are federal contractors, there was our new standard for Section 503 and BevRev. And that was the new regulations that said, hey, besides women and minorities, we're going to talk about veterans and people with disabilities. We're going to monitor that now. And so for us, we've learned a lot about kind of what we were doing wrong. Has anybody ever gone through an OFCCP audit? Yeah? It's fun, right? It's easy. It just takes no time. You don't need extra people to do that. So PG&E in the past couple of years, we went through 34 OFCCP audits. And if you've ever been through one audit, that's nuts, crazy. But the thing is that you learn a ton from those. You learn things you would never have learned before about, what you should be doing, what you could have done better, and a lot of that is what has helped us grow. But then on top of that, in 2015, we got these new regulations, and they said, hey, you have 1,000 things you need to fix for women and minorities and what you were doing there. So work on that, but also we've got some new regulations for you. To look at other demographics. And these were demographics that we'd been looking at, but of course the focus was not as heavy because they weren't so heavily regulated. So it was something that we did, as a good faith effort, and we kept an eye on, but it wasn't as high level of a focus. So first one was individuals with disabilities. And this is America's largest minority. It's more than 58 people in America. A lot of times people have this worry oh gosh, we're gonna have to do all these accommodations and whatnot. If we get into that space, what is that gonna mean? And how is the other HR side gonna deal with that? More than half of the accommodations that are needed don't cost anything. So keep that in mind. And then really important to keep in mind is that 71% of disabilities aren't visible. So you're not always going to know. And that's part of getting people comfortable with disclosing whether they're a person with a disability. You're not necessarily going to know. It's not the easiest space to recruit for because it's really hard to tell. So there's ways that we can work on doing that better as well. So the first thing, and this is good and it's actually essential, because if you don't get this right, and this is something that we're still working on, the rest of it is not really going to help you. So ensuring an inclusive environment, and this means a couple of things. This is not just about accommodations. It is about accommodations. You want to make sure that everyone, regardless if they're saying they're a person with a disability, they are a person with a disability, or they will ever become a person with a disability, has the right tools to be able to do their job productively, right? So really the bottom line is to be able to offer accommodations to everyone. We don't have to just like look if somebody checked a box and then offer accommodations after that. Everyone is offered accommodations so that they can do their best work. The other part of this is really a lot of education, both on the candidate side, the employee side, and the hiring manager side. Because there are so many things to help understand so that we can really get accurate numbers on the people that we're hiring with disabilities. A lot of people don't want to disclose that they have a disability because they're thinking that that's maybe going to be something that isn't desirable to an employer. Maybe they're worried, that their accommodation is going to be too much. They don't want to ask for it. So a lot of people don't. A lot of veterans don't say that they have a disability because they don't want to be seen as a burden. They just want to get the job and get things done from there. Similarly, a lot of hiring managers have many misconceptions about this. I mean, we've done a ton of training and we're still doing more training because we'll hear things like, oh, well, I can't do, people with disability outreach for this because, it's a utility worker job and it wouldn't be safe if a person with a disability was doing this because, they're going to have to be able to lift this much. Or not all disabilities are the same, right? Disability could be anything from having asthma to being an alcoholic to having diabetes. It doesn't mean that you have a visible disability. It could be PTSD. It doesn't mean that you can't do physical work. It doesn't mean that you can't do work within accommodation. Sometimes it's like, at this facility though, they have all these overhead announcements. So somebody who is deaf, I think, couldn't do the job because we have these overhead announcements. They need to hear it for safety. Safety is a big deal at PG&E, in case you didn't know. But we have to think beyond that, right? So sometimes they'll just think like, this job, X out for that kind of outreach. Every job can have that kind of outreach. And a lot of that is getting your hiring managers to understand that and also getting your applicants to even think about disclosing a disability that maybe they don't identify as a person with a disability. They're, maybe they have diabetes, but they never said that's not a disability to me. That's just how it is. So all of that is part of the education that you have to do to be able to really understand how many people you actually do have with disabilities at every level, because you're probably missing a lot of them. In your questioning when you're asking. A lot of people are probably saying no. So that's the first thing that's really essential. The next thing is making sure that you have a strategy for outreach. So what partnerships can you make for people with disabilities? What organizations can you use? And what means can you use? So you can use organizations that maybe you've thought of, like Department of Rehabilitation. They have job fairs. There's a lot of special groups for specific disabilities. There's Autism Speaks, there's Lighthouse for the Blind, there's all kinds that are a little bit more specific to a certain disability that you can work with. You can send them jobs, you can get candidates from them and whatnot. So that's one strategy. Another strategy is doing more things online. As we know in any demographic, not everybody's going to job fairs anymore, right? Especially not people who are passive candidates who are, already employed. They don't have time to do that. So where can you, find people where they are? One thing that we started doing last year was doing a little bit more on Twitter, and we were working with some people in the industry who are working more on disability policy and have a lot of followers in that area, and they'll retweet our jobs. So these are people who are kind of interested in that space, and it's something that means something to them, but they're probably not going to be out at the job fairs, right? So getting that kind of exposure and that branding exposure in different ways, social, online, is a good idea. And then I hear this time and time and time again from organizations that I work with, like when I talk to Lighthouse for the Blind or when I talk to the US BLN. Great, Gia, send us your jobs, that's fine, we'll have people apply. But here's what we really want. We want specific direct hire or temp to hire programs for our members. Organizations send us jobs all the time and they say, yes, we sent the jobs, OFCP, we did our job, it was our good faith and we made the effort, and I don't know, we're still at 2% for our hires, but we made our good faith effort. What they're saying is that it doesn't work. A lot of times we're sending the jobs, they may be applying, but they're not getting hired. So what really is desired from a lot of those organizations is to be able to do something like, I know a few companies have done some specific direct hire programs with Autism Speaks. So hiring, a specific amount of IT consultants with autism and working with a program to do that. So then that you're hiring, this amount of people. And companies, third-party organizations, nonprofits, would love to work for companies for that. And it's something that you can do. I mean, you can do the training in-house if you need to, or you can work with outside organizations to do some kind of a training to ramp up. But that's really the desired thing in the industry, is to have direct hire programs or even temp to hire. Hey, happy to have you try before you buy, but we have a group of people who have, this limited amount of training, and if you can provide the rest of the training and hire all of them in, that's what's going to really raise your numbers. And that's what's going to make an impact also on the community, because people are going, hey, that company is really taking it seriously. They're not just like putting out the jobs and being like, oh, sorry you applied, but we're still looking for the best candidate, so I guess it didn't work out, right? It really moves the needle there. So that's people with disabilities, but was that it? No, there was the other thing, which was VEVRA, and that is for our veterans, and that's what we're, again, started in 2015 to keep track of for audit purposes. And again, something that we were really interested in keeping track of and had a lot of initiatives around far before then. Very big focus on veterans, but right now we've got 22 million veterans living in America, and a lot of those are in California. And the great thing about this demographic, same with people with disabilities too, there's diversity within diversity. And our military strategy is a lot where we can double dip. So the military has minorities, they have people with disabilities, they have women, they have LGBT. All these other demographics are within the disability or within the veteran population, and so we can really kind of start to focus strategies. And for me, the way that I do this, one of my really specific areas is we need a lot of women in trades, women in physical jobs, and that's a tough one for us in PG&E. We need more women welders, we need more women utility workers, which is, there's not a ton that you need to be able to do to be a utility worker, but you have to lift 50 pounds and it's a physical job. So we use our veteran strategy to reach out to women veterans to hire more women into that category. And so that's great because we hire more women, we hire more veterans, everything is wonderful. Same thing with people with disabilities. Unfortunately, a lot of veterans do have disabilities. So there's a lot of organizations you can work there to kind of double dip and say, hey, we're looking for the people with this kind of background. One of worries, do you have anything? Can we spread the word from this aspect or from that aspect? So you can work with a lot of organizations and be able to double dip there. For the military, it's really important for military candidates for them to go to your website and see that you have anything about being military conscious there. I hear that a ton from veterans, as that's kind of the first thing that they look at. They say, I'm going to go to their website. If they say they're a military-friendly employer, then I'll continue to look. If they don't, I don't know if that company understands me, so I'm probably done. I hear that a ton, so interesting to know. Even better if you actually have a page dedicated to it, so that kind of ups your elevation of interest in veterans, and that's something that they take really seriously too. Again, this is a thing, it can be a costly thing. You have to add a web page, but I think it's going to reap you a lot of benefits. It's not people resources. It's a page resource, and depending upon how easily you work with IT, it's something that you can do relatively easily and relatively resource-free that's going to make an impact, and you can really highlight your connectivity to the military in that way, and also military spouses, if you can do that. So that's something that they really look for. What's super important when you do that is to be credible, and this is something I didn't really know. My dad's a World War II vet. My brother-in-law's just got out of the Air Force 20 years. Niece is Air Force. I see military stuff all the time, I don't recognize when things are wrong. See this website, like this uniform that they're showing, like it's not even like an American uniform. Like this is like a European uniform. Like I don't know what they're doing. Some of them he was like, this is like, I don't know, it's from like the Civil War era. Like this is not a thing. Or, you know, this flag's on the wrong side. This flag is backwards. Like they're showing this wrong. Like this would never look like that. Like nobody would ever wear this. Like it's a horrible thing. So that tells them that they're not like taking it to the point that somebody's actually looking at it, somebody cares enough to get it right, and that tells them something. So little things like that. And it doesn't have to be that you have to hire a military strategist to do that. We did that for our own reasons. But you can take somebody, an employee, and say like, hey, before we like post this live, can you look at it and tell me if something is crazy with it? Because they'll tell you. They'll be like, yeah, nobody wears their boots like that. It's not done. I mean, it's weird things, but it makes a difference. It really makes a difference to these candidates. So be credible and ensure that that's accurate before you come out and you put up your banner stand that has like all the flags backwards or something. It'll keep you relevant. So how are we going to do all this again? So much to do. So little time, and I know that you guys are all probably already working on this, but I can't stress enough that this is something that I do every year. You know, we look at it when there's a new initiative. Every year you kind of have to do these little steps. So the first thing you want to do is really create a baseline, and that's talking about like looking at other companies and what they're doing now. It's looking at what your population is in a CRM if you have one. To know what people you can already reach out to, what talent pools you already have, and where you need to do some work, and determine what's success. You also need to kind of look at your hiring. Again, workforce planning kind of in its infancy for a lot of people, but where can you hire? Like where do you have, you know, a bunch of welders you need to hire? Do you have a bunch of IT analysts you need to hire? And can you think about using a large group of that for a strategy? Could you do a training cohort for people with disabilities? Could you do a training cohort, and this is a big thing that we do for military veterans, to train them into, you know, an area where you need. And then the last part of that is having the recruiters talk to the hiring managers, because the most important thing, the very beginning, before we even get to doing some of this outreach, is the intake. When your recruiters are doing the intake and the hiring managers think they know what they need, and they say, I need a foreman for construction, and he should look just like me because I came up as a utility worker and then I was a superintendent, and this is how you do it. The recruiters have to really be the one to start to help hiring managers to think outside that profile and to say, hey, I know you say you need this, but it sounds to me like really the important part of this is budgeting or supervision or whatever. Have you ever thought about maybe a military candidate for this? Because they have a lot of this experience. They may not have the utility worker experience, but could we think about that for a minute? You know, what's really the important thing here? And that's how you start to kind of break down these barriers and start those conversations, because if we don't do it in the intake, it's too late, right? They already have this idea of what they want. When by the time they see the candidates, they see those military candidates, they haven't thought about it. They don't have, you know, this job that I have in my mind that they should have had in their past. It's over, right? Same thing for the expectations for hiring. You know, in the last session they were mentioning, look at your interview panels, make sure that they're not all pale and male necessarily, if that's what you're not looking for, right? So make sure that there's diverse people on the panels. It's a better perspective from the interviewers who are, you know, evaluating the person, and it's also a better experience for the person who's interviewing, right? If I come in and I see, you know, a panel that looks like one thing, maybe I don't want to work there. I don't know. The important thing is this is not, I mean, if you don't have a diversity strategist, it's okay. You have a lot of opportunities to use the people that you have. How many of you guys have employee resource groups, probably? So amazing, you know, tons of people there who love to get out, go to job fairs for you, you know, connect you with organizations, do volunteer work, do community things, can let you know about organizations you never even knew about that you can connect with. So really important to get involved with those. We have something besides employee resource groups. We started something called the Professional Diversity Networks at PG&E, and that's really cool because they're related directly to some of our big partnerships. So we use them for NSBE, SHIP, and SWE, National Society of Black Engineers, Society of Women Engineers, and Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, if you're not familiar with those. And we have little groups of those, and they come to conference with us. And that's important because we're going out to that conference. I don't need just me and the university team there. I can't tell them what it's like to be a Hispanic engineer at PG&E. I can't. I don't know. I don't know what they do on their day-to-day. I don't know about the engineering projects. I don't know any of those things. And so it's important for them. They come out, they have a great time. They also do a lot of professional development for people who are already within the organization. They love to do it. So that's something that they do on their own. It's not an FTE for us, but it's a way that we can work with them to have them do some work for us. They also do a lot with local chapters and help us make sure our jobs get out to them. And then we work with them as well, like on the social media side. So they help us with referrals. They can post jobs for us. And then the more diverse people that we have putting our jobs out there, the more diverse people we're going to get back into our pipelines. Again, scalable. You don't have to have one to fix everything. I mean, ideally, your pipeline, it's like you get all the people, you go out to your organizations, you go out to your different job fairs, you post on social media, you do all the right things, and like all the people come into your funnel and everything is amazing. You have your pipeline of people, and ideally you have the right percentage apply and the right percentage get screened in and the right percentage interview and the right percentage get offers and the right percentage get hired, and everything is amazing. This is our pipeline. That's my gas pipeline. People at PG&E get super confused when I talk about pipelines because they really are thinking about gas pipelines. And I'm like, no, I don't work in gas. I work in talent pipelines. So that's different. So that's the idea. You start to build it and it will come. That's the idea. We all know it doesn't exactly work that way. So here's the first thing. You should do all those things. You get your candidates, you get your referral candidates, and if you have a CRM, a lot of times you can tag your candidates. So a CRM, in case some people are not familiar, is a candidate, what is it? A candidate resource relationship, thanks. I was all resource manager. Relationship manager, database outside your applicant tracking system so you can put information that isn't going to be audited. You can put what event you found them at. You can put diversity information in there. So that's why it has to be separate. Can't put it in your ATS. You can tag them by what event you found them at. You can tag them by, what sourcing string you were looking at, what organization they came from. They came from the Black MBA chapter locally. If it was a referral from, your Latino ERG. So you could tag them by all these things. If you don't have a CRM, it's okay. You guys all have Excel spreadsheets? Work a lot in those. It's sad sometimes, but it also works. You can keep track of candidate email addresses so that it's not just, hey, I'm at a job fair, we have these jobs posted today, you can look at these jobs today, check out our website, see you later, right? How many times do we do that? Everybody has to apply online, we get it. Like everybody has to apply online, that's kind of how it is, but nothing hurts a job seeker more than somebody saying, go ahead and apply online. They're like, why are you here? I could have applied online at home, right? Like that hurts their feelings. Apply online, but we're going to take your email address now. We're going to keep track of you. We're going to continue to send you jobs as they come. Jobs are coming up open all the time. So you can track them, women, whatever it is. Tag them. Keep them in different tabs. Here's your women I want to continue sending jobs to. Here's the minorities I want to here's people with disabilities. Here's where I found them at the job fairs, whatever. You can do it in Excel. It's not fancy, but it's a possibility. And then engage them where they are. So send them things, email them things, do social stuff so that you keep finding these people. Just keep track of them, keep coming with them. If you have enough resources to, make it to where they can reply back and say like, hey, I did apply for that job. So you get some continuity of who's applying and if it's working. And then you really have to measure your success. So what is your success? Ideally, your success is like, oh, I hire X amount of people, I bring my percentage numbers up to whatever. That's great. I mean, that would be amazing success, and that's wonderful. But there may be a point that you're like, I don't know exactly how or how long it's going to take me to go from 3% people with disabilities to 7% people with disabilities, which is what I need for the baseline. You need some success measures for your recruiters and for everyone else to say part of our success is going to be our efforts. We're going to say success for this year is doing this many email campaigns to people with disabilities, post this many jobs, attend this many events, find this many leads to add to our CRM or add to our spreadsheets. Trust that and measure that system for a little while to make sure that people are doing it. because this is a sad analogy that I use sometimes, but it's like if I say, hey, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. If I've never lost 20 pounds before, do I know exactly how to do that? Not necessarily, right? Like, or how long it's going to take. If you've done it before, maybe you do. But if you haven't done something like that before, you kind of have to trust your system. Instead of saying, hey, I'm going to lose 20 pounds by December, you'll say, I know what I should do, though. I'm going to stop drinking milkshakes for lunch every day, first and foremost. I'm going to attend 3 classes a week for exercise. And then you measure your success based on that system. And then things are going to go in the right direction. How quickly? You don't know. Some things are going to work better than others, and keep track of that. And that's how you're going to recalibrate. So good is attending the right events and job fairs. Again, looking at that, what do you need for skill set? What level do you need? Are you going to the right ones? Evaluate them after you go. How many leads did you get from that? Was it worthwhile? Was it worth your time? You guys are busy people. You don't always have resources to go. Attend the right ones. Don't go to it next year if it wasn't any good. Change the relationship if it's not the right thing. Better, tag your candidates, and again, you can double dip. I'm going to send this to all women veterans because that's what I want to do. I'm going to send this job to all of them. I have a spreadsheet. I'm going to send them this job. A little mo better is to follow up those events with a campaign. So campaigns could be social, they could be email. Keep communicating. It's not just like, hey, I met you at this job fair, here's today, look online next week, all right, see you later. You have to keep that constant communication so that people start to value you. And then the real results is also getting those hiring champions there. Get your hiring managers out to the job fair so they can actually talk to veterans, understand what those skill sets are like, start to understand how they're translated and how that might be a person that could work in their organization. Get them out to engineering fairs for diversity so they can go, God, that guy was really great. I might not have considered him until I had a chance to talk to that person. Bring those hiring champions in there. Because it's all about like creating those connections, because we all know that's when people get hired. Somebody makes a connection to somebody. So the more people from your ERGs, more hiring managers, et cetera, that you can get involved at some level, the more success you're gonna have. So I know it's a lot. I could have talked all day about different things, but I know you guys are all on really different sliding scales of what you're doing. So I wanna thank you and take any questions, and I think we're having coffee break after this, so if anybody wants to come up later too and just ask anything, I will be around.